Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Barbie. Good morning.
Good morning, Barbara.
Here we are. It's Tuesday morning of our British Columbia campout. We've been having a fine time despite the rain. It's been wonderful. So we've got some really cool stuff we're going to share with you today.
Actually, something happened to me yesterday.
Oh, really? What?
So I have a kind of a personal glyph I've had for years now with the forest people, and it's a rune. It's the rune of Odin. I think it's the Assange rune. I can't really remember the name. I haven't put it out for a while in front of my tent. I usually put it out in my tent. So I decided to put it out yesterday, and that's what it looks like, more or less. And I went for a nap, and nothing had been moved. And I came out of the nap an hour later, and these had been moved up. This had been moved off the main branch, and this was put together like that, so they were combined as a V. And I instantly thought of Brian. It was more of a feeling than a thought, talking about little Bud, who is the main youngster of the area, I guess. And I just instantly felt it was him, that's his signature, the V. And it just, kind of said to the whole forest behind me, "Thank you very much, little Bud. It's really awesome." I just felt this hair, my hair stood on end. I felt I was kind of being watched to see my reaction to it. And the wind couldn't have done that. Yes, it was raining, but I don't see how the wind could have taken it from that to that, you know, or no one was outside my kicking anything. And we know that the forest people do these tiny little subtle things. So the story behind this real quick, and I've actually shared this in past videos a few years ago at our camp videos, is I found this glyph on 3 different occasions all over the Northwest, where I literally just found that, because I was really into that rune. I was really into runes at the time, and that was my favorite rune, the Odin rune. Not that I think I'm Odin, but I love that, and so it was left for me wherever I go on hikes, you know, on 3 different occasions. And the fact that it was moved like that has a lot of meaning to me. So that's it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you to comment on something that you talked to me about earlier?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you said you were in your tent and you were feeling a little fear or whatever?
Oh, that was last night. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can you say it almost exactly like you told me, because it was like...
Shall I talk about the night now? Move into the night?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
because it was so, like, word for word. I mean, I knew exactly what it was, because word for word, what I've experienced and what other people experience here. I can't talk for other areas, but...
Okay.
But anyway, it's important that you share that, I think.
Okay. So we're going to move into the night.
Okay.
So at night, I went to lay down about 10 o'clock or so, and so I admittedly still have fear when I'm alone in the dark at night. Not in general, but I'm at campouts. I guess there's this fear I'm going to get poked, or whatever, get dragged out of the tent. I know it's irrational, and I know you had talked about a certain famous celebrity, a survivor celebrity who was here and got messed with pretty hardcore, I guess, and he didn't put it in his video. So I was thinking of that. So I get kind of tense, and maybe if I feel them around me, I get really tense, and I'm alone. And all of a sudden, I just said to myself, no fear. Just let go. Just let go of the fear. Just let it go. It doesn't serve you right now. Just let it go. And just relax. And right when I felt that, I really felt that, this wave of energy just washed my whole body, like from the tip, my crown chakra, or the crown area, just started tingling and just came all the way down to my toes. I just felt super relaxed.
It's not a feeling. It's like a definite. Like,
absolutely.
It's like, oh, I had a feeling.
It's a rush.
People have to understand. It's not. It's like it's concrete. I mean,
yeah.
Real.
It's a very visceral electric. It's a combination of being electric feeling, but also a very calming feeling. And I've experienced this before in Greenwater, which I shared on the couple last year, the May camp out. And but then it was more of I could feel a pressing, and I actually could see a forest or Sasquatch, outside my tent. I could see it in the moonlight, or standing, and then it happened. But this was not as dramatic as that, but it was dramatic. I mean, I felt it strongly, and I just calmed down, and I wasn't afraid the rest of the night. So that's it. It's pretty cool. So
I had a young guy that I introduced to the Sasquatch, and he went out and was camping all on his own, and he had these owls all around him, like big owls, like 800-pound owls, he figured, whatever. Talking all around him or whatever, and he also had the Sasquatch people talking, like doing the he heard them like all night kind of thing, whatever. Wow. And he was feeling the same thing as you.
Yeah.
Really, like a little, he was like out, but he was out like in a place that's way more remote than this, all by himself. There was nobody else there with him. Like he didn't have his buddies here. He was really alone. And it was kind of, a brave moment for him or whatever, and kind of a test. But he was feeling that fear, and he got the same thing. They calmed him down with that energy, and he felt like, they that's what they do. They relax you. They take that fear away, like make it okay, right? So
cool.
That was, when you told me that this morning, I felt that was amazing and significant. It just rings so true to what I know here, right? So
There was some light seen last night.
Well, wasn't there activity here?
Well, there was. Well, we had a raccoon came visit.
No, I thought there was shadows.
Well, there were, but first there was the raccoon. We were all sitting in there, and we heard the commotion, and we all jumped and looked, and yep, there was huge raccoon tracks all over. And then a few people, I think you guys left, went to bed, and then there was another raccoon, a smaller raccoon, came back and ran off with your bag of stuff.
And Sue had a big standoff with him.
Yeah. So then everybody else left, but we were watching at that point because we were thinking, the raccoons would return. So it's just Sue and I sitting over here, and we're watching that in for the raccoons to return, and I started seeing some shadows and some movement just outside the shelter, but it was up above the tables and up above where the raccoons would be, it was, and then a few times along this side right here, just outside the shelter. Saw some movement, and we'd hear shuffling and things like that. That definitely was not the raccoons.
And you guys went to bed around 1. You and Sue.
Yeah.
But you looked at your clock at 12:45 because we saw some lights that were on my side of the tent, which is facing the back of the shelter. We're up in the forest, and the lights seem to come from down here, but there's a little hill, so we have to go up this little tiny hill into the forest to get to our tent. And the lights that I saw first were on my side of the tent, and you could see the trees, and some of these trees have short, stubby branches on them that are covered in moss, and that's what I was seeing on my side of the tent, illuminated. Kevin was awake. He saw those as well. They started to go around the tent from my side, around the front, and off to his side. And we actually thought maybe it was you guys had gone to bed. We had heard a clunk, and we thought you thought it was Barb's car door, but it was prior to 1 o'clock, so it wasn't your clunk. And there was just all kinds of light activity going on. We had the twinkles in the top of the tent. Wow. I had off to my right around my head level, just right straight out, there was a brilliant, bright light more towards the ground. It was just right there, brilliant, bright light. The front of the tent illuminated the entire front of the tent. This dull light appeared. You saw different things than I saw. We saw kind of the same things, but we saw and heard different sounds and different colors.
Well, starting with the bright light, I talked with both you and you as far as the sequence of timing. I definitely woke up or was watching the lights at 12:45. You guys didn't go to bed until 1.
Yep.
And you checked your watch. So this happened before you went to bed, before you started to move.
So you guys were probably having your light activity while we were seeing the shadows and hearing the shuffling.
Oh, it could be. Could be.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And not only that, the back of the shelter we were in would have blocked us seeing their lights if they were.
Oh, you can't see.
No.
You can't see any light from the shelter or of the shelter from the tent.
Yeah.
This light was. It seemed to be up at our elevation, and we're talking 10 feet, but it makes a difference here. And the light went around, and every so often there was a flash, as if the headlamp was flashing right at the tent, and then would go back down. I mean, it was an LED headlamp. It was that bright. There was no subtlety to it at all. And then it looked like the lamp went down because, like Sandy said, the whole front of the tent, the zipper side, the door side, completely lit up. And
there were no tree limbs or anything in that. It was just a brilliant, solid light.
in front of the tent, it is pretty wide open. But we do have a table and a canopy leg right there went across, and I didn't see the shadow or the impression of the canopy, and I figured, well, that's just because this light is so bright. It's just gonna overshadow a shadow. So and then it went over to my side, the cliff side, where the canyon is, and just for a moment to my side, and you could see the bright light like staring at us, and then it went down, and I thought, oh, Sue's better than this. I figured there's no way you'd be out that way.
Right.
And then it went towards the front again, and then I don't think it walked away. I think it just faded out.
It faded out right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then you started saying, well, do you see pin lights in the, up at the ceiling? And I was like, well, I see sparkles. And he's like, well, it's pin lights. And I, well, yeah, it's sparkles. and I reached for my glasses. I put them on. I took them off. It didn't matter. There were sparkles up there. And I tried waving my hand up there, and I could barely see when my hand passed over.
Wow.
Because it's that dark. But these sparkles they're little pinpoint sparkles up at the tent. And then
Did they have any color?
They were all different color. Oh, they were different little colors. And I remember saying, I see them like they're like a little shooting. There's little tails on some of them. They were shooting around. I remember saying that. Somewhere at the same time, I started asking in my mind for them to acknowledge if it was them. So, and Kevin didn't know that I was doing this. I was just like, if this is you, talking to the forest people, please let us know. Give us a sign, whether it's foot stomps, whether it's a swipe on the tent.
Oh, tree down.
Good Lord.
Where's your sign, Sandy?
It's true.
Look at that.
There's your
Hello?
son.
It's moving like crazy over there.
No, there was a huge branch that just came down.
Look up.
I watched it fall.
Look up.
Yeah, look up. Don't chase it.
Good Lord.
I mean,
That was really intense.
Falls down naturally, but
There's your sign.
All right.
Is there something up in the tree?
I don't see anything.
How many branches have fallen like that this week?
hey, this is a classic.
None.
Was that perfect timing for your sign?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. It wasn't a whole tree, so.
No? Did anybody see something come down?
Oh,
See
yeah, I
anything?
saw-
I saw the branch.
I saw it was a
Yeah?
large
Look right
branch.
there.
Yeah.
We need to go look at the branch.
Okay.
Well, when we're done here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the acknowledgement,
Well,
Sandy.
yeah. Oh, thanks, guys. That's awesome. All right. So, fist bump. Yeah. Hey, I got in on that. Cool. So I'm asking for this sign, whether it's a swipe on the tent, whether it's foot stomps, whether it's a grunt or growl, a call, anything to acknowledge that that's them. And then unbeknownst to me, he was asking the same thing in his mind. And what I heard was off to my right, where that first light appeared, was a high-pitched spring-like sound, like a squeak, a high-pitched squeaky spring. It was like,
That's yeah.
yeah, and then we at the same time we go, did you hear that? At the same time, but he heard a grunt, and I heard this high-pitched squeaky squeal thing. I heard mine twice, and he was like, I just asked them for a sign. I was like, I asked him too. But he heard the grunt. I heard the high-pitched squeaky spring.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
That is
so
very
that
cool.
was awesome.
We were saying our intentions internally, and we're saying it out loud. And when I was saying it out loud, I asked for a sign, and of them, and not just like what happened here with the branch. Sandy asked for a sign, branch crashes down. I asked for a sign, and as soon as I said sign, I didn't even finish the word. There was this Christmas star light right on my left, and I mean I'm lying like here, and it's absolutely in my periphery, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was so bright, brilliant. It wasn't huge. I mean, it was like this big around, but it was like the most beautiful Christmas star you ever saw. It was, you could see the edges of the starburst. You know how it bursts out. You could see the edges. It was just perfectly clear, beautiful. I mean, just amazingly beautiful.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. He was like, did you see that? And I was like, no, but he described it with seeing each point.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Inside
with,
the tent.
with perfect clarity. I don't know if it was inside the tent or not. I got the impression it had to have been outside because I'm lying right next to the tent wall. It seemed like it was, a little bit further than arm's reach, but it was so bright and so clear that, I mean, you could see every little, the edges were perfectly clear. It was beautiful, it really was.
Wow.
And then we actually got up about, 1:45? 1:45 and came over here to get something to eat.
Mac and cheese time.
Mac and cheese time. Yeah. So then we came over here and sat here for about an hour.
Okay, and you didn't experience anything after that?
Just a raccoon.
Okay. Okay. So also in the time that you guys were having your experience, and you said that you had heard a grunt. Dana, you heard a grunt too, didn't you?
Yep.
Not.
Yes, I heard 2 grunts, but I just can't really place the time of it. Because you thought we went up about 10. I was thinking we went up a little later, and it was probably a good hour after I was sitting up there at least. But it still doesn't put it up quite as late as your grunt. So I did hear one. It was in between our tent, Kevin and Sandy's tent, and mine. So I thought it could have just been Kevin, maybe. Didn't know if they were up or not. I have a little bit of fear still at night in the dark. And so I asked, don't scare me. And then a little bit later I heard a second one, again, not knowing if it was from Kevin's area or not. It was definitely that direction. And I just can't place the time.
Okay.
Can I? And the rain was pounding by then, right?
Yes.
So you're hearing the rain on the tarp.
On the tarp. Very
So-
loud.
Can you comment on that? So it must have been close by.
Yeah, because with my tarp over the tent, that's all I hear is rain. And it was raining pretty good at that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would have heard it over that noise. And still, so I don't know.
Okay.
I know the Sasquatch make that grunting sound
Yeah.
for sure, and it's
Definitely.
usually a greeting grunt.
Okay, so I think I'll wrap up with my story. It was 1 o'clock. Sue and I had been in there just around the fire here, just watching for the raccoons, seeing the shadows and stuff around the edges at 1 a.m. And I looked at the clock. It was 1. It was time to go to bed. Okay, so she goes off that way. I went this way. She took the lantern in there with her, so this was all black in here. I went into my tent. I probably played 3 video games on my phone, just to make me tired. By the time I get into my 3rd game, I'm pretty tired. So I turn off my lantern. I lay down on my left side, and just like the first night at our first camp here in BC, my cot started to do the little shimmy underneath me, and was very obvious. This was not something that I was just like feeling in one spot. You know, my whole cot was shimmying. So I'm laying there and I'm thinking, okay, now this happened when I was laying on my left side the last time. So maybe if I moved before, when I moved, it stopped. So I'll move and see if it stops. So I roll over onto my back. Nope, it kept doing it. So I'm laying there and everything is shimmying, and I start hearing underneath me, the floor of the tent, the canvas floor, something rubbing on it, and I can hear sticks breaking right on the other side of the tent wall from me. And oh, we got a raven.
We might get some knocking again back.
Awesome.
That's what it did yesterday.
Okay, so I'm laying there and I'm picturing there are sticks being pushed underneath the canvas from the outside, rubbing underneath my cot on the floor, because I'm laying there listening to this, and the cot is moving. And I can hear little sticks break on the other side of the tent wall. And then all of a sudden, I feel on the side of my leg, the sleeping bag pushes up against my leg, and I'm like, okay. Now, I had already, my intentions were, I had said, just come and play with me. You know, I'm not frightened. I'd be happy to have some games going on around my tent. You're welcome to do whatever you want. That was my intention. And they did. They pushed in on my leg through the tent wall. So I'm laying there, still laying on my back, and a few minutes later, I'm still hearing the movement underneath my cot and beside the tent, and all of a sudden I feel the pillow push on the top of my head. And whereas the sleeping bag, I felt it push and then release, the pillow didn't. It just kind of stayed there up against my head. When the pressure went away, the pillow didn't move away from my head. It just stayed there. So then I'm laying there, and I'm pretty stoked about all this, and I'm just kind of giddy about it. And all of a sudden, this brilliant white light, and my tent is just right through there, this brilliant white light on this side of my tent and it goes on out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm not hearing anything from over here, and the light is bright, it's moving, it's casting shadows from the leaves, from this pump, and I'm kind of trying to rationalize it, and I'm thinking, well, maybe you'd gone back and told Brian about his bag of stuff that the raccoons had stolen, so I'm thinking, well, maybe Brian came back with a spotlight, and he's looking for his stuff, because this bright light is moving all over. When the light came on, all the movement on the side of my tent and under my cot stopped, and about a minute went by, and I'm laying there and I'm watching all this movement, and then I can feel the vibration of stomps go past the far side of my tent, going that way, walking away. And you could feel it as it got stronger, as it came close, and as it moved away, the pound, pound, pound on the ground beside me. And then the light kind of just disappears, and it becomes just this one pale, just in the lower corner of the tent, just this one little pale light. And at that point I'm thinking, okay, it had to have been one of us, and there's somebody over here in the shelter, because it just looked like it was no longer shining on the tent. It was just a distant light, a little glow in the corner. So I think at that point that was you guys that was down here making your mac and cheese. So tonight we will do a little recreation and see if we can, we'll have you come down and do what you did and see if it makes that kind of light that's so bright on the side of my tent, and we'll be able to decide whether or not that was you guys that came down, or if it was maybe the same light show that you were having that came onto my tent.
And you have to make mac and cheese.
I know.
I was just thinking that too. It's like, oh, it's going to be a good
for everybody.
night.
I would just like to thank you all for coming, because it's just such a privilege to have you all here.
Oh, it's
and to show
wonderful being here.
and because you're experiencing now the love and the joy and the thing that I feel every day, and when I'm writing about them, now you know why I talk about them like that. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, they're wonderful, aren't they?
They are. This is beautiful. Thank you so much for having us here.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you all for sharing this morning. Awesome. So we're going to go and we're going to have another great day. We're going to have more experiences, and we'll be back tomorrow to share it with you. So have a wonderful day, everybody.